Center Universitas Pajajaran, has joined with us today Professor Yuan, the Associate Professor from the Department of Geography and Resource Management and Institute of Environment, Energy and Sustainability, the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Professor Su, thank you very much for coming with us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and actually we are now about to talk we are going to talk about the renewable energy. And actually, how China or the government of China in general have put the renewable energy into their policy agenda?
It's a really long process. You have to, if you understand the current policy, you have to understand what's going on in the past 20 years. So the current focus, or is really a shift to renewable energy, has a really long path. In the beginning, 15 years ago, China did not have this major focus on renewable energy. If you look at that time, China's energy was very much dominated by coal, fossil fuels, especially coal. So it's a really gradual process. And in the beginning, was China's environment is really the environment conditions really bad. So then more and more focus has been put on how we can control air pollution, other environmental problems, and of course gradually climate change is playing another role. So when people see that it's maybe the direction for the entire world, and of course China of course gradually also realized that this one can be quite an important issue as well. And also another concern, for example, about energy security. Basically, renewable energy are a domestic energy, and you don't have to really import solar and wind, this kind of renewables. And if China uses more renewable energy, basically China could reduce import of fossil fuels. Basically, country all three major forms of fossil fuels, including oil, gas, and coal even. China is a net importer. So with renewables, you can also enhance energy security. So another one is about if industries. If you think that in the past 20 years, China has been developing very big wind and solar industries. So gradually, this solar and wind industries coming back to push ahead the country's renewable energy policy to install more wind and solar. One example, for example, if you think that after Europe stopped after the anti-dumping of the Chinese solar PV panels into Europe and US, China started to use its own solar PV panels. Starting in 2013, basically. You see that very major push also from the industry itself, because they were in a very bad situation at the time. But then also at the time the price of solar PV panels was so much cheaper. So in that time you got a push from the industry, from the solar PV industry, and at the same time the government also felt that it was a better right time to get more renewable energy. Solar PV was so much cheaper than before. So with all of this, gradually you can understand what's going on in today's renewable energy development.
So, what do you think? What can the world, or especially Indonesia, learn from the China's experience in terms of developing the strategy for the renewable energy?
Well, I guess a lot of lessons could be learned, not just for Indonesia, but also for China itself. Because this renewable energy, even though that a lot of progress has been made, but it's really a long way ahead. And which means there's still a lot of potential that could be developed in the coming decades. So a lot of lessons could be learned for everybody, I guess. And also experiences, some successes, some failures. And also for this, I guess one of the major things is to be more strategic, more active in thinking about your own policy, what kind of thing you want. So in China's cases, we found that, for example, the development of renewable energy and also the development of renewable energy industries. On one hand, they're quite open, and also so the government can think about what is good for the country, and trying different ways to push it ahead. And also, if you think about how China established its own industries, a lot of the technologies come from abroad through really technology markets, through licensing. So China basically utilized technologies from other countries to establish their own industry. They're still paying royalty, and so in that way they got to the technology nowadays. So after they have learned the technology, gradually they are putting up their own capacity for innovation. So with all of this, for example, it's true basically for Indonesia as well to further develop I guess so one of the most important things is to you have to always sit in the driver's seat. So think about what's best for your own country, and think about what kind of status you are staying in now. So nobody's perfect. So always think about where you are, and what kind of advantages you may have, what kind of disadvantages you may have. And for example, you also try to understand other countries well. So use other people's experiences, lessons, technology as well, and think about what kind of strategy you can use for your own benefits. So in that way, so I said, you just always just sit in the driver's seat and take advantage of other people's in this globalized world. So don't try to do everything by yourself, and that could be very slow, especially for developing countries. There's really a lot of opportunities that could be utilized in other places. So basically, I would say that in order to develop renewable energy, and also probably at the same time it would be best to develop related economic opportunities, renewable energy industries, for example, to be open and confident at the same time.
Okay. So the last question actually, what are the potential challenges do you think, like for the developing countries as also China, in development of the renewable energy?
Yeah, so there are a lot of challenges still. So, but of course, we are now standing in 2018, which is very different from, for example, 10 years ago, 2008, and it's a very different year now. Renewable energy has gone through very rapid growth and also development in innovation in the past decade. You see that the cost of renewable energy has coming down dramatically. So that's actually an advantage for especially those developing countries that if they have not developed renewable energy in such a massive way. But the still cost could still be a challenge. The renewable energy sometimes is still it's of course the comparison of cost between renewable and fossil fuels are different in different markets. So the cost of renewables could still be more expensive than the cost of fossil fuels. So that's one thing. And also, for renewables, especially for wind and solar, which is intermittent, it gives a lot of challenges to the grid. So basically, a lot of developing countries are not very much advanced in technologies, including electric grid. So basically, if you want to get more renewables, you have to think about your technologies, about a grid. How can you make sure that your grid can function well? At the same time, if you absorb this much intermittent renewable energy, so basically in the end, you make sure that you do not have blackout because you have too much renewables. That's another very bad thing. Also, is when you think about renewables, especially in the beginning, you need some support. So basically, you have to think about your business models in running renewable energy development. So basic, for example, is a lot of countries that started with $1 billion support, subsidies, to get started with the renewable energy development, and also if you think about the renewable energy industry as well. But for developing countries, that's a big challenge because developing countries tend to have a much smaller budget. So the budget condition probably is even tighter than other developed countries in that sense. And also in that, if you think that, so because developing countries do not have the necessary budget to kick off the initial progress, so that could be a challenge as well. Another one, for example, if you think about industrial, so the technological capacity, for example, so you think about who's going to build these facilities. If you really rely on developed countries, including China, for example, still as a developing country, I would say, but if you really rely on these countries to support your own facilities, first that could be expensive, and so relative to your own development status, and second, so basically, for example, if anything goes wrong with these technologies, so basically maintenance is also a big challenge. How, for example, some countries they can import wind turbines from other countries, But they have to still rely on those countries who supplied their wind turbines to maintain the wind farms for generating electricity. That could also be a very big challenge because the cost would not be cheap. If you really want a lot of engineers to be stationed in your own country from other countries, and that's another very big cost. So how can you make sure that you can build up your own technological capacity to do that? And also probably it's another challenge, for example, how you make sure that you can make good policies. So of course we have to learn from each other among countries about what kind of policies could be effective. But we have to remember that different countries are different. Each country is so unique. We have to remember that also according to our own research on China, our country as well. So different countries are so different. If one policy that can work very well in one country, that does not mean that it can work very well in your own country. So basically, if you want to make sure that you can have these good policies and got implemented in your own country, you have to establish your own capacity to make good policies. So basically, you have to think about, you always learn lessons from other places, why these policies are effective or not effective in other countries. Then you have to understand your own situation, understand your own country deeply. Then, as I said just now, so you have to always sit in the driver's seat. Be confident that so each country, so you know much more than other countries know you. So in our sense, we really try to advocate that you do not have to blindly trust foreign experts. So really think about what's best for your own country. So think about what kind of thing, because you really understand how things can work in your country. Other people tend to take a lot of things for granted, for example. But in developing countries, especially, a lot of things that we take it for granted in other countries may not exist. But we don't know basically for an expert, for example. So in that sense, this could be a very big challenge. So how can you make sure that all of these capacities got developed before you can jump into this one? But there are, in these solutions, for example, in my own research, I'm trying to propose that always trying to make an improvement whenever you see opportunity, especially for developing countries who are not in a good situation, so for many different ways. So if you find that there's opportunity there that can improve from your current situation, just go for it. Do not try to design a perfect situation. Do not try to design an optimized condition. Then you can just go for it. So in that way, just try best to make improvement at any time as you can. So it's probably that's why you can have a faster path and get you closer to the solution to improvement. Again, so it's not perfect, but still you can gradually improve.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much,
Thank
actually,
you.
Professor, for the talk and for the insight, actually. So that's all our interview for today. Don't forget to visit our website in www.sgcenter.unpad.ac.id and also follow our social media account in Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube.